Hello, everybody from my side. My name is Max, and I'm your host for this evening for our blockchain meetup. And my co-host is Dennis. He will also help me with some chat issues and with the communication part.
Hello,
so
together.
let's get directly into it. Today we are having a combination of our usual blockchain Stuttgart online meetup with the blockchain hackathon meetup. So a few of you might be some of the hackathon participants, and some of you might be the usual meetup participants. And tonight, we're having a combination of both. The topic is the introduction to decentralized platform economies, a framework for competition. And let's get a quick view to our schedule. Right now, I'm giving you a short introduction and welcome for our keynotes. And we are stepping into the keynotes with the introduction to decentralized platform economies. Unfortunately, one of our keynote speakers, Markus Büsch, is not available today. He has some private issues, so we are just having only Thomas and Harry Behrens, but there's no problem. We have enough content and enough stuff to talk about. It's a big topic about. So after we're having a short keynote, we are having a short Q&A discussion. So if you have any questions upcoming during the meetup, just write any questions into the Zoom chat, and after our keynote, we are linking to it and using those questions to ask the keynote speakers. So feel free to ask any questions which came into your mind. We want to have a really powerful and nice conversation about our topic. And around about 9 o'clock, we are having the announcement of the Hackathon Challenge, and afterwards the general discussion. At 9:30, we are having a short networking session. The meetup ends at 9:30, and then we are using WonderMe, where I provide you the link afterwards, where you can really meet and get to know each other. Maybe also share some ideas about the hackathon challenges or meet some new people. So for those of you who don't know what the hackathon is all about, our hackathon starts on the 12th of November. And the motto of the hackathon is also the motto of our meetup. It is competition and decentralized platform economies. And competition means that you have a cooperation on the infrastructure layer and competition on the implication or product layer. But I don't want to tell you any more content about that. This is for the keynote speakers. If you want to join the blockchain hackathon as well, I show you and provide you the links in a few minutes, but you can join with developers, entrepreneurs, students, young professionals, and also blockchain enthusiasts in order to have a look at how the decentralized platform economy in the future could look like and just explore the true power of competition. So if you want to join, you can have also a lot of benefits and USPs. And why should you join the blockchain hackathon? You can win prizes total worth of 10,000 euro. You're also able to just try out blockchain technology and solve real problems which are provided by our sponsors and companies. You get a certificate of participation, but also you can just use the whole network and the whole community. We have a lot of mentors who can provide you and help you with some issues and problems. We have also some sponsors where you can get in contact to them. And as well, we have a lot of fun during the hackathon and want to provide the usual hackathon feeling also on the online edition. So that's everything from my side. I provide you the links in a few minutes, but I don't want to spend any more time. Just let's get into the decentralized platform economy, and I get back to you as Thomas. You can just shortly introduce yourself in one or two sentences. I mean, this is, I guess, the best option for that way. And yeah, let's have a look how the framework for competition could look like.
Yeah, thanks Max. I will share my screen and then I start instantly. So hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, then 2 sentences. I try my best to do this in 2 sentences about me at the beginning. Thanks for having me at your meetup today. My name is Thomas Müller, so one of the most common name in Germany. I'm the CEO of Epn GmbH and also the spokesman of the Epn Network. Epn Network, only a few words about this. This is not the marketing pitch today. It's about co-opetition. Epn Network is a blockchain-based infrastructure for enterprise purposes. And we built this together with a lot of partners, node operators, and they run the Epn Network. And that's why the Epn Network is an own organization. And yes, I'm here in the role of the spokesman of this Epn Network organization. If you want to go in contact with me later on, you can do this using LinkedIn, Twitter, or read something more in my Medium page. Topic co-opetition, and at first I want to slightly disagree with the with the definition you introduced, Max, some minutes ago, because I think it's not only the infrastructure level on which cooperation takes place. So co-opetition, that's true. This is a very complicated word. Yeah, this is an artificial word, a mixture of cooperation and competition. And when you come from the native blockchain world, I think it's all about cooperation. You talk about DAOs and so on, and there is cooperation in the center. In the business world is a bit more complicated because there is competition in the center and there is only a few cooperation. And in the recent years, more and more discussion is about we need to cooperate more to be competitive and so on. But cooperation is really a hard topic. And that's why competition is the approach to combine both things, to cooperate. And I describe this cooperate on the level of resources mostly, and to compete on the level or on the level of customer offerings, so market offerings and so on. So I think, and this is really important, it's more than infrastructure, but we will see this then later on. So at the end, competition is, you can summarize this as the approach to bring, what's going on? Competition is the approach to work together, and this is only possible if the ones that want to cooperate have a common and overarching purpose why they do this. And my most stated questions in all these competition initiatives is, please answer it first, the why shall I join question for all the participants. This is mostly not really reflected. Most initiatives start with a lot of technology things at the beginning, but the most important question is, why shall I join? Do we have a problem with my presentation? Because I always got such a notice here, but you see my screen, yeah? Okay.
We can see your screen, yeah.
Great. So then a bit more concrete, what could co-opetition mean? We have a lot of fields where co-opetition, so cooperation and this co-opetition on the customer side could make sense. In my experience, and we had experience, so me and my team, both in our own network initiatives. At the end, Epn Network is also a cooperative ecosystem. But also in customer projects that use the technology to build market offering solutions for themselves using this infrastructure. And mostly you can put them in one of the 3 fields. One is joint asset ownership. So a group of companies, a group of people want to own a specific asset together and utilize this within business processes, within customer offerings. You find examples in the real estate sector. You have high value objects and you can buy them together as a group and utilize them in rental purposes and so on. But you find also examples in industry segments like sharing of industrial machines. So you have a shared ownership between many enterprises, and you share these resources to do your business. And at the end, you have a customer offering that is individual for each of the participating enterprises, but you can utilize the machines that are expensive or rare. You do not have enough resources, so you can really share these resources. This is one of the fields where co-opetition makes sense and takes place more and more. Another vector, and when I talk about shared resources, you always think in things like machines, assets, and so on. But really interesting is also the cooperation in the field of supplier networks, so traditional supply chains. And they have a big problem at the moment, that supply chains are really hierarchical. And in the digital time, especially when it comes to things like sustainability, ESG compliance, so environmental, social, governmental compliance requirements, you need to share information of your suppliers, your supplier network between all the participating parties. And if you want to do this in a digital way, you need to treat your suppliers more than a network, than a supply chain, a linear supply chain, and to allow them to share information, to document their information, like carbon footprint information, for instance, to the products that are produced in such a supply chain. You need common standards, you need common tools where you can track and trace this information. So for all this proof of origin, proof of quality things in multi-tier supply chains, a co-opetition model makes sense. And then the shared resources are the suppliers. And the field, which is also very interesting, and I think Harry will talk about this then in the practical part, is the automation of processes. So when you want to coordinate processes across a set of partners, you find things like this in the mobility sector, which is Harry's field. You find similar things also in industrial sectors, where you have pay-per-use business models that came up more and more. And you need to bring together various vendors that work together to provide a service based on the product, but aggregated with different services. And how you bring this together and how you coordinate these activities between these partners and make individual customer offers. Therefore, you need cooperation. Therefore, you need digital data exchange. And therefore, co-opetition makes sense. So, question is now, what is the architecture of a platform for such co-opetition scenarios? And I do not want to provide a specific architecture today, because you will find in the reality a lot of different architectures with a lot of different technologies, but they have mostly common structure. And this structure starts with an infrastructure. We talk about digital co-opetition systems. That's why we are here. This is a meetup. You will have a hackathon. And so we do not talk about things where paper is exchanged between the cooperation partners. You want to integrate all this work in a digital way. And this takes place on platforms. And I think it's very interesting to think in the past, in the pre-internet era, and there were also platforms there, marketplaces, for instance, and all the actors, all the sellers and buyers come to this marketplace, and every seller has its individual booth on a specific place, because the marketplace was really a place, And then the transaction takes place between the seller within its booth and the buyer, which comes to this booth and makes this transaction with the seller. In today's marketplaces, in today's platform, this is a bit different, and I do not need to explain that to you, but it's important to keep this in mind, what we want to achieve in the future system. In today's system, we always have a platform, a marketplace that controls not only the place, but also all the transactions that takes place on this marketplace. And this is because the digital infrastructure for such marketplaces is necessary. And this digital infrastructure is directly integrated in all these flows from offering until up to the settlement layer. And if you want to change this, you need first a credible, neutral core infrastructure where you can provide your resources, where you can provide your assets, and where you can also define your rules of participation in such a marketplace, which is called governance. I will come to this later then. So this is the technology, this is the infrastructure, but, and this is back to the initial definition of Max about co-opetition, this is not all. It's not enough to cooperate on the level of infrastructure, because the next level is very, very important. And this is the level of shared standards. You need a set of standards, a set of protocols, and these protocols can be industry specific. They need not be global standards, but you need a standard how you share information, how you exchange information between the partners that operates within this ecosystem, within this co-opetition scenario. And this is, by the way, the most complicated part, because this is really hard work to agree on a specific standard, data exchange formats. There are a lot of initiatives that try to standardize information globally for a lot of industries, but from today's perspective, this co-opetition layer find a common language, a semantics of that, what is exchanged between the partners. This is really hard work, because it needs to be done by the players itself, by the ones that want to cooperate with each other. Then we have again a more technical layer. This is then the decentralized marketplace or decentralized infrastructure, but not the core infrastructure like blockchains and so on, but the economics logic. So you need a logic that brings the demand and the supply together, that realizes the market mechanics that is equal for all and is accessible for all that participate in this cooperation scenario. In all these levels, we are on the cooperation side, because all the partners work on this shared set of protocols and a shared set of logic that is necessary to bring all the things together. We currently work on a very interesting project, and one of this public funded projects by the German government. We want to build a shared decentralized marketplace, which works on a really decentralized way. So with peer-to-peer transactions between the individual partners in the machine sharing sector. And you need such similar things in all the industries where you want to create co-opetition scenarios. And then finally, we have this competition layer, where the individual partners create their own market offering based on this cooperative standard, and these are then individual applications, websites, portals, marketplaces, whatever, which is then accessed by the market player itself. And ideally, they use a digital identity to access these marketplaces, and ideally, they use also decentralized identities, self-sovereign identities, and so on. And then they have the possibility to access a broad set of marketplaces and are not locked in, or a broad set of specific industry applications and are not locked into a specific silo. So this is the core part, or the core layer architecture of co-opetition scenarios. And for your hackathon next week, I think it's really important to focus on what level or what layer of this architecture you want to address with your solution, because it's really hard to make a solution in a few days that touches or that accomplishes all these layers. So then only a few words, what governance, because the word governance will always come along when you talk about co-opetition. And this is the part that Markus would fill normally if he would be here. But I will explain a bit about this, what is necessary in this governance field. So we have for every co-opetition system, we have 3 layers. One is the market layer. This is the why shall I join question. So what is the offering of this co-opetition network, of this ecosystem for the players, for the actors, stakeholders. Then we have why it will not work. Then we have this infrastructure layer. I explained this and come to this later on a bit more in detail. And last but not least, we have the organization layer, and all these layers. So organization layer is how the companies that act together in this ecosystem work together in the legal part. So you need legal structures that are embedded in legal structures you find in the reality today. So if you do not define a legal structure, you have the problem that this then normally is a partnership with all these legal impacts you have with such partnership organizations. And that's why Markus and other lawyers in the field of decentralized organizations are really investigating in how you can combine legal structures that exist in the real world with the principles of decentralization. And in the blockchain native world, you have terms like wrapped DAOs, for instance, that take exactly this approach to wrap the principle of a DAO into the body of an real legal organization. And they are very interesting, and it's really a pity that Markus could not be there, because we have really interesting approaches here. So for instance, he uses the construct of the European cooperative SCE to embed the principles of decentralized organizations within such an organization form. And this is not only a theoretic concept. Organization like ID Union, I think some of one knows this project, are trying at the moment to build exactly such organizations. And these organizations are then there to bring the partners on the market layer together and allow them to operate and provide a shared infrastructure. So this is not easy to realize in only one step. That's why normally we have a three-step approach, 3 phases. I will jump over this a bit faster due to the time. We have the discovery phase, and I think you start with the hackathon next week, and you will be definitely within the discovery phase. And all the complexity of decentralization and decentralized organizations, you can completely blend this out, because always in the discovery phase, you act as a small team and you act like a startup. You have a specific idea in mind, and you try to find a product market fit. The only thing you need to ensure in this phase is that you build what you build on a neutral infrastructure, because otherwise you can't change this anymore. If you use a database that is operated by one of the participants and put all the data into this database, later you have a problem, because this database is owned by one of these partners. So don't do this. Later on, design phase is then there for create more community participation, open the product, open the project, treat it like an open source product, and incentivize the partners that shall join the organization to really join. In this phase, then you can also build the legal structures together with lawyers and so on. And last but not least, very important, this is the exit to the community. Typically in the blockchain world, this comes along with a token sale to a public community. So, and then The last thing I want to explain, what technology is available already in these different layers. So infrastructure layer, for instance, this is not a complete set of technologies, by the way. Yeah, there are a lot of technologies out there, but you can focus on the most important components. And from my point of view, on the infrastructure layer, we talk about transaction layers, blockchains, DLT infrastructure, second layer protocols, also AI-based agents, for instance. They become more and more important to connect with the real world. Decentralized storage, also very important. And I already mentioned this, all the things around self-sovereign identity to integrate the customer at the end, also in a decentralized way into your application. Then on the market layer, we have a lot of tools and infrastructure components there, decentralized marketplaces, decentralized finance solutions, so that you really can build your settlement and transaction layer on this. What I already mentioned, metadata standards or data standards, there are a lot of standards out there for specific industry scenarios, but this is always a very, very hard topic to define set of standards, a language where all the partners can agree on. So keep this in mind, this is not easy. And then last but not least, the organization layer. Here you have the legal structures. I think you definitely need someone with legal competencies in your team to define this. And on the other side, you do not start from scratch for the operational side of these legal structures. So you can use tools like DAO Stack, Aragon, or other governance tools to implement these governance structures, voting structures, and so on, so that you have from day one or latest in the second phase of your decentralized initiative, set of tools that allows you to bring the partners together and initiate votings and so on to come to a really democratic structure. Okay. This was my part. Now I think the slides will provide it to you afterwards. You can have a bit more information on some of the things I wrote in the past about this topic. And now I think it's the time to switch to Harry so that Harry can explain how these cooperation, co-petition approaches could look like in the praxis.
Thank you, Thomas. May I get control so I can share the screen? I think I will try here. You cannot start the screen while the other participant is sharing. Yes, that would be rude. So let's try one more time. Very beautiful. Yes. So thank you, Thomas, and pleasure listening to you. And yes, I mean, Thomas is, as most of you probably know, but definitely should know, he's a real authority on this. He's one of the very few people in Germany that have actually gotten their hands dirty in trying to build this. I really recommend all of the audience to study up a little bit on the Epn Network, where it came from, or where it's going, because it offers a very focused study of how to apply governance and, in a way, the fundamental thinking behind governance to a specific and realistic and actionable issue. So thank you for providing the background. Me being somewhat less theoretically well-founded and more on the rough and tumble side of just getting things done as you move along, I would like to address this topic of decentralized governance from the perspective of market mechanisms and incentive design, because in my mind, ultimately it all comes from that. And I hold with, I believe, it's apocryphal, but the saying is attributed to one of the Warren Buffett guys, and it goes, show me the incentives and I will show you the outcome, which means I believe that whatever incentives are given in a dynamic system in which people may interact will shape the outcome, because people do optimize their incentives, whatever they may be. That is pretty much a law of nature. And incentive design coupled with market mechanism has the target of achieving sustainable balance on the macroeconomic scale, meaning that your economy, your finance, your society is in balance, while at the same time the individual players, ruled and pushed by the invisible hand, optimize only their own incentives. So achieve macroeconomic sustainability through the optimization of microeconomic greed. That is pretty much how I believe things can be approached, because there I have the optimism, because incentives would be at the bottom of it, and market mechanisms set the rules, that not only would it theoretically work, but because incentives drive people very strongly, people will actively and with all their effort work in such an environment. So now, coming from a company that has set as its goal to decentralize the way mobility is delivered and utilized and governed and operated, the key message here is we need to find a way to achieve the scalability of platform economics, which are very desirable. And any of you who's an Amazon user, an Uber user, a Google user, a Facebook/Meta user will know that no matter what you may think about these big companies, the comfort they offer and the one-stop shopping, the one-stop get whatever you need in that market service that they offer is very compelling. They tend to be towards their customers priced very competitively, often free, and they provide all the comfort that you want. Now, and because they scale so well, they scale so well because they are based on platform economics, network effects, etc. And the approach that I would be trying to elaborate on is, let's achieve the same effects. Let's apply market mechanisms and incentive design with the goal of achieving a global sustainable balance where we stop aggregating and we start collaborating. Who are we? Well, I used to be the head, I founded the organization as well, of the Daimler Mobility Blockchain Factory. And in May 2021, together with a colleague, Sophia Rödiger, who's also from Daimler Mobility, and Bernd Hanisch, who's from Athlon, which is a subsidiary of Daimler Mobility, we took what we had been developing within Daimler Mobility over 3 years, and we had developing this, by the way, also in collaboration with Epn at the time, with a company one or the other of you may know Spherity, with 51 nodes. I saw 2 or 3 names of that wonderful company in the audience, with Riddle and Code, etc. And we built something that addresses the market of mobility, of urban mobility, but predicated on decentralized technology. In May 2021, we did a spin-off and a management buyout, and now the software belongs to us. We've by now collected more than 3.5 million in seed funding and pre-seed funding. The one or the other of you might have followed a token launch, which was handled by an organization out of Singapore, which essentially, where we did the token engineering and the community management as well. And we got quite some traction now in the level of partners. The one or the other of you might know Flixbus. The one or the other of you might know 50 Hertz. The one or the other of you might know Athlon. Those are but 3 of the, by now, I think 10 or 11 partnerships where we bring in our platform, our partners bring in their products, and we try to build a decentralized and collaborative platform.
Harry, sorry to interrupt you. Do you have any, do you want to share any slides, or is it like your presentation without slides because someone was asking that?
I thought I was sharing my screen.
Okay, no, you're actually not.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then.
Maybe you just also like provide your slides afterwards so we can just send these slides to everybody else.
So this is the slide I was just showing. I'll leave that on for a few seconds because actually I'm now by content. I'm now already in the second. So this just says we're a wonderful small venture company, quite well funded coming out of Daimler Mobility and very busy partnering up with quite well-known companies in the German and in the Dutch ecosystem. That's essentially what this slide says. So now the writing is on the wall and we truly believe that. Aggregation is a dead end. So if you see how scalable ecosystems evolve, you will again and again and again find the platform economics at play. It started, I'm not sure, with maybe Google, Facebook, but more relevant to the industry are companies like Amazon or Uber. And they are very, very efficient. They are very, very good, and they do fulfill the need of the customer. Let's not kid around. So, but they're extremely dangerous. Why? Because they come in, the game is always the same. They come in as so-called neutral players. So they're not active actors in the market that they offer their two-sided marketplace, another word for platform, in. They say, hey, we are not booksellers. We are not shopkeepers. We just provide you an infrastructure so you can operate your shop and your bookshop in our whatever, in our environment. And you know what? We're really nice. We handle the billing. We handle all the invoicing, all the onboarding. That's all on us. All this boring work you don't have to do. What that ends up achieving, and that's now where the market mechanisms were wrong and the incentive design came very in, the platforms that are supposed to be the neutral market ended up getting the customer relationship. So every single platform game that you know is predicated upon and is only funded in the tens of millions, in the hundreds of millions, and sometimes in the billions, because the customer relationship is all of a sudden in the hand of the platform operator, not in the hand of the company that delivers the service. And that is dead wrong. That is obviously not sustainable, because what it will create is by sheer incentive and by sheer market mechanism is very simple. There's one company in the middle, extremely powerful, that can apply all the data analysis, the machine learning, the optimization, the A and B split to optimize the offering, to analyze what the customers want, etc. But the companies that actually deliver the service don't even own the customer anymore. Policymakers are waking up to that, thank God, because on their own, nobody is powerful enough to basically go up against these platforms. As they stand, they can only be dismantled, like Standard Oil was dismantled in the beginning of the 20th century. They can only be dismantled and stopped in their tracks by policymakers. This is happening in the US, this is happening in Europe, and this is happening in China. So I'm confident that we have seen probably this year, that was the highest and the most successful level the centralized platform ever achieved. We will look back and say the wave broke in 2021. So these traditional B2C platforms, they own the customer. The service is delivered by somebody else, but because they own the customer, they now have the power, think Uber, to charge 20-25% of their revenue to the companies that actually deliver the service. I can tell you there is no legal business that I know about that has a raw margin of 20%. There simply isn't, not sustainable. So if a company then ends up having to pay 20% of revenue, you're cutting into your own flesh. It is not sustainable. So, and the problems are very real. I mean, the wonderful acronym GAFA is quite well known in Germany, so I don't need to elaborate on that. And it is not a joke. So everyone loses. And now comes, what is a way out of this? And this is where finally this kind of polemic overview of the dangers of centralized platforms comes to a constructive approach, comes to a constructive ending, and the circle is closed towards why we need governance, why we need decentralized governance. So networked systems, and the historical perspective here is think cooperative systems. And in English, the word cooperative, the noun, is almost one-to-one the German Genossenschaft. So the adjective is very generally used, cooperative, and the verb as well. But the cooperative is what in Germany you would call a Genossenschaft. And if you look at organizations that have chosen this cooperative approach, you will find actually, for instance, in Germany, they can be very sustainable. I don't know if anybody of you knows the Kreditreform. It's a decentralized organization. The Sparkassen are decentralized organizations. In every wine valley in Baden-Württemberg, and probably in the other provinces as well, the Kelterei, which is the place where the wine farmers bring their grapes for pre-processing, that is a collaborative and jointly operated infrastructural element, which competitors jointly operate because it provides services that are too big or too complex for each of the companies to handle themselves, but it makes all of them stronger. Einkaufsgemeinschaften go into a little bit of this as well. In the US, the saving and loans industry, which is a little bit like the German Sparkasse, they are decentralized. Visa, when it was first founded, there's a very famous book, by the way, and Markus Büch would talk about it if he were here. Visa, when it was originally founded, before its IPO, was also, in essence, a cooperative or an alliance. The main feature of such systems are they do the same thing as any platform does, which means it is a platform on which the players in that market stand. So it provides the common layer, the common marketplace, and the common market mechanisms for that market. That makes it still very much the same as any centralized platform. But it is predicated upon not being owned by this usually Silicon Valley player that is funded by hundreds of millions of venture money and ultimately accrues all power and becomes predatory in their rent extracting practices. But no, the platform is essentially owned or rather, and that is where the word now gravitates back to Thomas, governs by those that are using the platform. So that is the quintessential thinking in why decentralized platforms and decentralized governance are important for a company like us, which is using technology to provide a common infrastructure for urban mobility, which by nature is fragmented, and fragmented and decentralized are two terms that are closely related to each other because they point to many, many players in a distributed system as opposed to one vertical supply or market chain. In order to do this, it is quintessential that it becomes clear which part is competition. Let's take the example of the wine farmers. Obviously, the wine farmer, when it comes to the end customer, prefers, I want to sell my wine, not your wine to my customer. On that level, we are 100% competitors. That's very clear, and that's how it should be, because after all, we live in a market economy. On the other hand, to operate a Kelterei, these big pre-processing half factories with which you pre-process the wine, is simply too expensive for that wine farmer to handle. So either he gives his complete product, including the customer management and everything, to a big company that handles all the marketing and the branding and degrades him to be a cog in the machinery, which would be the equivalent of the centralized platforms, or he gets together with his competitors in the same valley and says, all right, we do compete, but let's somehow make sure that we have one market, which we keep up together, and that we together fund the common infrastructure that you need to process and pre-process wine. And then as it goes into the higher value-added part of the wine, the specific branding, the specific secrets, how to create this wine or that wine, then obviously we're competitors again, and then we compete to each other. And somehow, this is the mechanism you want to bring into platform economics in its new form, where they turn out to be more decentralized. And now, last but not least, and with this I will end it, so why does somebody like myself, who basically provides a mobility blockchain platform for mobility services, even bother to talk about governance and decentralized platforms? Well, it's simple, and this is where I believe the opportunity lies. And this will then also relate maybe a little bit to the purpose of the hackathon. With blockchain and the underlying peer-to-peer decentralized architecture, the underlying trustless consensus mechanism that allows participants not to have to trust each other as persons or as companies, but to trust the transaction and the underlying network, very nicely and very neatly maps to the purpose of operating a decentralized, a shared, a collaborative infrastructure. So by leveraging the technical mechanisms that decentralized identifiers for the verification of identities and signatures, and distributed ledger or blockchain for the decentralized processing of transactions and the decentralized financial settlement. By combining these two aspects, we do need decentralized platforms, because platforms, wherever you deliver services over software, network effects will almost, like a physical law, converge towards platform economics. But we do very much out of reasons of society, of sustainability, of equilibrium, and of balance, we do need to create the market mechanisms in a way, and the incentives in a way, that what has been happening again and again so far, for these huge companies that come in, absorb the full market, keep all the power, and end up being total gatekeepers, that must be stopped. And that is where decentralized cooperative platforms can make a service, and leveraging the technical mechanisms underlying decentralized identifiers and underlying blockchain, I and my company believe that is a match made in heaven. And like Thomas has already shown in essentially a live case study with the Epn Network, this can be done, and we hope we will be part of this way of offering services based on a completely new paradigm and completely new mechanisms.
Yes, thank you very much, Harry, for your part. Sounds very promising, sounds very kind of very revolutionary to the current system. Let me get back the screen sharing functionality. And after like all the content and everything we heard, let's make a short power break, as I'm just showing you our sponsor from our blockchain association, BlockLab. Let me just do a short introduction to Stuttgart Financial. Is the sponsor for our BlockLab. They are strengthening the Stuttgart as a financial center and increasing the visibility, and focusing also like on different topics on sustainable finance, startup support, innovation, and also HR and education. And if you have any questions or inquiries, any ideas, they provide you with contacts, widgets for data and facts about the financial center in Stuttgart as well. But if you also like want to start a startup, they can also like provide you with an accelerator. So just like a short introduction to and thanks to our sponsor for BlockLab, Stuttgart Financial. And let's get back to our schedule, where we were right now talking about the introduction to decentralized platform economies, organizations, and competition. So thanks again for Harry and Thomas for your keynote. As we right now step into a short Q&A, some of you may have also asked some questions. Dennis, do you have any questions which were asked in our Zoom chat?
We don't have any questions yet, no.
Not any questions.
Oh, there's one question coming right now. It's like, hi, thanks for the great info. What is the link of the marketplace to share machinery in Germany? Was it a question to Harry?
I think this was this machinery marketplace, what I mentioned before. There is not a public available link because this is a B2B system. So this machine sharing marketplace was originally created within an association that is called BBI. So this is the German Initiative for Construction Machine Rental Companies, and they use the system as explained for a co-opetition scenario. So with this marketplace, they have the possibility to share available resources of machines between each other so that one of these partners can integrate a machine of a partner into its own customer offering. So if customer calls and the machine is not available in its own machine park, then they can digitally access a machine of a partner and rent this machine to their own customers. So that's why it's not accessible via a web page for an ordinary user. It's only accessible for the companies, and it's integrated in their processes. So they directly communicate from their ERP systems with this system.
Yeah. Don is saying thank you. Perfect.
We got another question to Harry. It's what will be the answer from Google, MS, Amazon on the decentralized platform?
Well, for quite a while, nothing, I believe, because this is all just a blip on the radar for now. So even though we feel we who are in that ecosystem, in that sphere, we believe in it very strongly. We feel the power, and this is the future. If you look at the facts, which is the actual revenue, the actual users, so obviously this is not a threat, a perceptive, real threat for them at this point in time. So I believe for quite a while they will do nothing, or embrace it. I mean, let us not forget that in all due respect, one of the best thought through blockchain initiatives I have ever seen is Libra. And that was beautifully designed. It was going to be beautifully executed. They just made the mistake of to put Mark Zuckerberg at the front of it. So they got backlash from hell, and they will never be able to move forward. But if anybody has done themselves the favor of reading the white paper and going into the tech description, it was a very, very beautiful approach. And it was decentralized, actually, at least according to what the governance even parts of their white papers said. They were going to decentralize this. There was nothing wrong with the design of it. So you can probably see them on the economic side, pretty much they will not feel threatened. But on the other side, they will try to get into it to optimize some of their own offerings. That would be what I see now. One thing that is clear, however, and that is more relevant, as we, for instance, approach companies, we have a very black and white type of reaction. Any company that we approach that thinks they are the Platzhirsch, meaning they are the number one, the babo in that market, is completely not interested in decentralized. Why would they? They are the Platzhirsch, they are the incumbent, so their interest is not to do decentralized. Their interest is to extend their umbrella on all the little ones that are not surviving so well and becoming even bigger. And on the other side, the second and the third and the fourth players in each market is very much aware of the danger of centralized platforms, so tend to be much more open towards collaboration based on decentralized platforms. It's a game. In a way, it's a Robin Hood game, because the whole decentralized approach is, in a way, built to give power back to those who don't have it and take some power away from those who grabbed an excessive share of it.
Thank you for the response, Harry. Like, maybe also to Thomas, the question for you: what are you thinking? What are the big companies doing in contrast to the decentralized platform economy?
Hard to say, to be honest. I think if I I think we will see competition scenarios mostly in the next years in B2B environments, because in B2C fields, it will take a long time, if it's ever possible, to beat these platforms. This is my personal view. So there are a lot of things that are necessary to make an offering. The ordinary user, it's completely all that what we currently have in this field, like these decentralized identities and so on, self-sovereignty. This is not really important for the ordinary user. So it's convenience, it's easy to use, it's reliability, and so on. And most decentralized initiatives are far away from really competing with them. I think we have some interesting approaches there. But it will take a very long time. So I think in B2C, from my point of view, for the broad mass, will take very long. And this is the challenge in B2B, we do not have these dominant platforms at the moment, and we have the chance to build this in a different way. That's why I would say outside of the blockchain bubble, the competition and decentralized platform will mostly take place in B2B environments.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Fion Fuchs raised his hands before any other question we're coming into. Fion, do you want to ask the questions through the chat or want to turn on your microphone?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the Epn Network. So as I get, it's a private blockchain then, only business to business, only business who are, or does it run on a public blockchain, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's a combination, permissioned blockchain with public access. Or what we did is that we created a neutral organized structure, the so-called Epn Network organization, where all the node operators are in, but there is they are committed to a specific set of rules how to operate a node. So not everyone can join, for instance. You need to be a legal entity in Europe to be a node operator. This is necessary for these enterprise purposes and so on. But the mechanic is created in a way that everyone can use these networks. So it's a public network from the terms of usage, but it's permissioned, regulated by this Epn Network organization, not the Epn GmbH, in terms of who can join as a node operator. If you are interested in more details about this, I can share also some more information later on.
I just had a look at your website, and it didn't really. I just
explain this question.
It didn't really go over who is currently using this Epn network and for what purposes. There were just the case studies I looked at. So yeah. Okay, I think that answered my question. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, we may also come back to those questions or that type of questions later on. As you were telling about the Epn network, Thomas, I was also thinking about the Epn network, which is also kind of the same network as well. For those of you who don't know what the Epn network is, it's kind of the same network. What is described by Thomas, it's also like an permissioned, regulated blockchain network where the usage and the application layer is also transparent and open. But that's from that. As we have 9 o'clock right now, I want to introduce you the challenges for the blockchain hackathon. And after the announcement of the challenges, we can back to the discussion and to also to some of questions by you as well. But for those of the hackathon participants, actually, I would like to know who is from the hackathon Event Tornado platform, who is like the hackathon, who is a hackathon participant. just maybe write in the chat. It's interesting to see who is coming from that side. I just like show you my screen for the challenge announcement. Do you see them? I guess so.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes.
Challenge
Okay,
announcement.
perfect. So let's have a look at our first challenge. The first challenge is provided by the Bank of Baden-Württemberg, LBBW. It's the finance challenge. And the challenge, it is just like a short description and a short sentence, just as develop a sustainability-linked finance ecosystem to sustain biodiversity worldwide. This is our first finance challenge. There are more details and also like more background information on our Event Tornado platform Hackathon website, where you can get more insights and more information. But that is right now like the first challenge for the finance. The second challenge is regarding the industry, and the challenge on that type is redefine the current linear value chain of manufacturing systems using decentralized platform economy and autonomous organization systems. This is the second challenge where you have to think about like, okay, right now we have the usual linear industry manufacturing processes where you can also like include some IoT-based sensors, different approaches, and just think about all the topic and motto what Thomas and Harry were telling you, and how can we include a decentralized platform economy and a system in order to kind of redefine or reimagine the typical linear value chain of manufacturing. The third challenge is provided by Blocksmooth, where we also have the CEO of CTO of Blocksmooth, the Harry Behrens, also like our keynote speaker, which you already know. The third challenge is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Harry, writing in a short sentence, build a bridge with a balancer pool or an AMM for a two-chain public token, which is deployed between two disjunct blockchain networks.
Well, build a market and build the mechanisms to achieve equilibrium between tokens that are independently being utilized on separate blockchains. That's essentially, and the bridge is a mechanism to do that.
Yes, perfect. Thank you for the adding. So maybe you can also like add one or two sentences, because right now Blocksmooth is currently based on two different blockchain networks, on the Binance Smart Chain and also on the Ethereum chain. And we have currently there are two different prices for the token. And the challenge is to create a bridge where you not switch the tokens on a one-to-one switch, where you like also integrate a liquidity pool. Is it right, Harry?
Well, think of it the following way. And the purpose here is, if you have a utility token, which you use for a service, in our case, it would be used for mobility, then no blockchain in the world is the one blockchain, it shouldn't be. So you need to be able to run on that blockchain and this blockchain, in our case, Binance Smart Chain for the time being and Ethereum. Now, tokens are traded, so they fluctuate in price. Obviously, the same utility token should have the same utility on whichever network it is. And this is where market mechanisms and incentive design comes in. I believe in the power of incentives to achieve a desirable balance. The desirable balance is that the same utility is worth the same across wherever it's being traded, and you leave it to individual players that optimize their own incentives. You provide them with the market mechanisms, such as bridges, liquidity pools, balancer pools. They then optimize their game theoretic utility, but in the process of many of them doing that, they achieve a higher good, which is the global balance, which is what you want to achieve, stability in the price of your utility token.
Perfect. I guess like if all of those participants have any questions, come to our Event Tornado platform where you can come to the event chat and you can ask questions to us, to our mentors. Later on the 12th of November, also like ask directly specific questions to the challenges. So Dennis, could you also like again provide the Event Tornado link so everyone who is interested into joining all those challenges can just start from now on. And like one is missing, we have 3 challenges as well, but if you have any other idea regarding the decentralized platform economy focus and also like on the topic of competition, if none of those 3 challenges fit you, just come up with your own idea and just surprise us and think about models which could arise through the blockchain-based networks, like in contrast to digital monopolies. So that's the part for the challenge announcement. Let's come back for the rest of the 20 minutes to the rest of the discussion. And after like 9:30, we can step into kind of a networking part where you can also like get to know each other and just like maybe brainstorm some first ideas. Dennis, do we have any questions left from the participants?
Don't have any questions yet for the blockchain hackathon. So to everybody, if you have questions, just write them in the chat and we'll talk about it and try to answer everything.
I'm seeing like one question from Theodor Beutel on the decentralized platform mobility.
Do the question to Harry.
Yes, Harry, one question to you. Let me get quickly look through on a decentralized platform for mobility. On which layer do you see the most value being created and room for profitable business models?
Well, this is now comes exactly again part of the governance, right? If you have such a platform, and I mentioned the word cooperative or genossenschaftlich or something, there are those that deliver their service, the scooter company, the bus company, etc. They have their own value add and they have their business model. And then you have the platform itself, which provides the Koppelfeld, the infrastructure, the transaction layer. And there you have another business model. And what you need to do is, because ultimately, again, I firmly believe in that, only incentives and market mechanisms which are in balance will work. You somehow need to align the incentives of the platform and the incentive of the service operator to match. So obviously the highest value add should always be in the end customer facing product. That is, generally speaking, how the economy works. So a shared platform should be a volume business, should be a volume, low margin, transaction-based business in essence, whereas the actual delivery of the service, where the differentiation happens. I provide the best mobility service, black Rolls Royce only, etc. That is where the highest margin, but probably also the smallest market would lie. So it's a heterogeneous environment, and there is different value adds in the middle. The point is not so much where is the most value being created. The point is, do you manage to align the incentives of those that use the platform with those that operate the platform? That is, in essence, as far as I'm concerned, the question you need to answer, and you need to answer practically with mechanisms, with rules, with governance, but also with technical execution, actionable components.
All right, thank you. Maybe like one more question to Thomas, because like also Sergey was asking, but also like Harry, you were responding to that. What hinders that we have the decentralized platforms already today? What are the implementations? Thomas, what are the kind of challenges? What hinders the decentralized platforms today?
Yeah, on the one side, we do have decentralized platforms, but they are not in the industry or in the field of the traditional industry companies. So we have a lot of decentralized platforms in the DeFi sector, for instance, and we can learn a lot from such platforms, how the mechanics work, what Harry mentioned with the incentivation mechanisms and so on. I think for the traditional industries, we have a lot of approaches. Also initiatives like ID Union, for instance, are initiatives like this in this direction, where a lot of companies work together to create an joint standard for identity management and all the related things. But the problem, what I see is, and what I see is mostly the hurdle of, and we see this all the time. Okay, I need to cooperate with my competitors. I need to sit on a table and discuss about standards and discuss about how to share data and so on. For many companies, this is still a big issue, a big problem. They do not want to do this, and they do only, even if they say, okay, I do this, they do this not honestly. This is one problem. Then we have some more regulatory problems. I think Harry can tell more about this. So we have this cartel thing. So you cannot cooperate completely with your competitors. So you have to respect some rules. And I think from my point of view, these are the biggest hurdles, because from the technology point of view, there are not really hurdles. There are so many good technologies out there that you can start to do things. And I think this more mindset. So do I really want to cooperate? And then this a big thing of finding the right standards, the exchange formats that fits to the existing systems and so on. You have not a green field, you have existing systems. These are all hurdles in the reality that we see almost every time when companies come together.
Yeah, here I would like to add a rant, because I can tell you from practical experience that because of mistakes that were made in the past, we have a trust law, Wettbewerbsrecht, and authorities within the EU and in Germany that walk around with such big sticks and such sharp swords that they make it impossible for even innocent and peaceful conversations between companies like that are competitors to start. How could we collaborate here? How could we collaborate there? The moment that this would be on the record, these managers would risk getting fired, would risk going to jail. The company could be very easily slapped with tens of millions and hundreds of millions of penalty. And this is not theory. Those Behörden, so those authorities, are very, very sharp in what they consider, especially towards big companies. This has gone completely overboard, because it must be possible to discuss with competitors how to build shared infrastructure. The current legal situation and the executive arm that goes with this legal situation makes that completely impossible. Test it. If you know any senior manager in any big corporation, innocently propose, oh, I know somebody at your competitor and another one of your competitor. I can introduce you, and we can get together and talk about how to build up a shared common infrastructure, and watch his reaction or her reaction when you make that proposition. It will be a reaction of fear and dread, and that conversation will never happen. So that's a rant a little bit. This is more than an obstacle. This is where policies have gone completely overboard, and they're killing the possibility to move things into the right direction. End of rant.
So basically, what we are doing on the priority during the blockchain hackathon is like kind of the technical implementation and the technical building, the technical infrastructure, but also you also have to keep in mind we have like some legal issues, governance, economy systems, and this is something like which also needs to take into account. So it's not only necessary nowadays to only code a protocol where you have a decentralized platform economy. Exactly. I think that's, yeah. And that's why the blockchain hackathon is just build a good balanced team where you not only have some coders, but where you also can implement the coded protocol into real world cases and real world problems. So technically you can do everything, but on the other side, if you can implement into the real world, it's on another note. Okay, so
maybe Max, to make a positive finish to the thing. So beside all these hurdles, what I saw in the recent time, when you try based on very concrete examples, when you try to realize them, and this could even be pilot projects or showcases or whatever that show what is possible with that, and then show this to the companies, you will find innovative companies that hear you and that start going the steps into this direction. This is what we learned from the past. So make things real, show things, and a hackathon is a good thing to do exactly this. And then talk to the companies. They will listen, but it will take them some time. So you need much longer to convince them and to really make progress. But start, because otherwise we will not change the world in that way.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Perfectly said. So just be creative, open-minded, and just like try new things. Just think a little bit out of the box, and then we are able to change our current system and think about new applications. And yeah, there's another question from Jörg Schneider. Why to talk to build a common infrastructure between businesses? A public blockchain provides this universally.
It's true. I think the question is in my direction. You can use public blockchain infrastructure, and this was what we originally want to do with Epn. Build an enterprise layer with some specifics on top of a public network. But for most enterprises, you have some hurdles with public infrastructure that are still there. Starts with pricing things. Yes, they will be solved in the future, but they are not solved at the moment. You have also some compliance legal things. So you need to be clear in, for some cases, who operates the nodes and so on and so on. And these are hurdles enterprises have today. At the end, it's a trust thing, and you can argue that this is all solved in public infrastructures, but you will not make progress. That's why we decided to build this Epn Network and build this enterprise stack on the basis of or on the foundation of such an more permission operated network. Yeah, this was also not our originally intent to do this, but from my point of view, this is necessary in enterprise world until today.
Maybe let's also think about some tangible examples. So Harry or Thomas, do you have any other examples of decentralized platform economies where the participants can also have a look at? So you don't have to start from scratch. You can also like look and choose for other economies where they are leveraging this actually.
Well, historically, look at the Sparkassen. The Sparkassen, every single Sparkasse is an independent company and usually belongs to the Gemeinde that it's situated in. But of course, they're perceived as one identity, and more or less they are. And they share their common infrastructure is in their Verband and operated by horizontal companies that deliver it. And it's a very sustainable model. And it's been around for a long time, and I'm confident it will be around for much longer. So it's not a technical answer, but it is definitely it. And Thomas, maybe you can either correct me or basically point out where I'm oversimplifying. But in terms of a healthy market mechanism, good incentive design, solid governance structure, they have pretty much nailed it. The other one is Kreditreform. Kreditreform, which is by far the market leader on trust, providing trusted data with regards to enterprises, is very much organized along the very same lines. So they're all independent little companies that together become what we all know, the Kreditreform. So these are the real world examples. And now on the technical side, you just reinvent it with new technical language. And there I would look at DeFi. Obviously, DeFi is a very functioning decentralized finance. It's a whole ecosystem where the one offering the one smart contract is coupled with the other. You put them, to plug them together however you wish. And the result is a thriving financial marketplace that, mark my words, in 10 years will be directly competing with London and New York.
Yeah. I think these are surprising for most of you examples, because they have nothing to do with blockchain and all the other new fancy things. But you can look, I already mentioned this, in two directions. And Harry, you are completely right in the dimension of what are the mechanisms that still exists for many years, that works for traditional enterprises, and what can we learn from these mechanics. Or from these examples. And then on the other side, you can look on the pure digital native solutions, decentralized finance, and so on, and look what the mechanics are there. And if we try to combine the things, then I think we can really create industry-grade digital solutions that combine the benefits of both worlds. But it's necessary to understand how the mechanics on the traditional sector works without any blockchain and decentralized things from the technology perspective.
And that is the unique opportunity we have, especially in areas like Stuttgart. Some things, there's a saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The purpose of collaboration and co-opetition, believe me, it was not invented by the people who coined the term in this cycle. It is hundreds, if not thousands, it's hundreds of years old, believe me. And it's a topic which comes again and again in every single society and every single economy out there. But every generation has new tools, has new languages, and we happen to have decentralized technologies, which right now are the hot shit. It's right now, that's the stuff you can really do very beautiful, very fast, and very effective stuff. So all what we're doing here is we're just applying a new language, a new set of tools, which just come out of Satoshi, essentially, and we're applying it to improve and to reiterate something which has been continuously reinvented in every generation that has done commerce, and every generation where you got a lot of small players facing some very few big players. Because wherever you have that, you will have either centralized power or some kind of balance with the decentralized power that basically checks in and balances the centralized power. And the beauty of why is this highly relevant for an area like Stuttgart? We have a very, very worldwide, almost unique, healthy industry, deep know-how of what the real business is all about. But there is also quite a hotspot of people that fully understand these technical protocols, the protocol economy, and the mechanisms and the power that they supply today. And it is in the combination, in neither one uniquely. The old engineering is very powerful, but it needs fresh blood. And the fresh blood on its own simply doesn't have a clue how the markets work. So it tends to kind of jump around and not really solve real world problems. And in combining the two, that is how you can really contribute to hopefully the fact that the Ländler and the Baden-Württemberg and regions like this, in the next generation, 10, 15 years, they have incorporated all of this and they have stepped up one level and applied these new technologies and continue to do business in a sustainable manner.
Thank you, Harry. I guess we have a few more minutes left before we step into the networking part. I see there are not any other questions by the Zoom participants. This is your last chance to ask the keynote speakers. And if not, then maybe let's ask one more question from our side. I mean, we kind of talked about that, but what are your predictions for the future? regarding to the competition paradigm. Thomas, what do you think? Like, what or how could the world look like in maybe on the short term, in 5 years, or maybe in 20 or 30 years? Is the world now on the competition-based network, or is it like the same, but the monopoly companies are just bigger and bigger?
I think for all the use cases, and this will become more and more that are digital native. For this competition, DAOs and structures like this will be the new normal in the future. I think this is more or less clear for me. In the traditional world, I have not that that completely clear view. I think there is a battle at the moment between centralized and decentralized approaches, and I hope the decentralized approaches will win. And I think especially for smaller companies, this is the only chance to win on global, more digital markets, to jump into these models. But also for big companies, that will be an essential value driver. But I think it's not clear at the moment that this will really happen. Maybe we will see that the same happens like in the B2C sector, that we have more and more dominant central platform. And I think this it's not clear how the race will end from my point of view. But I think in the digital native world, and we see this game sector is the next thing. We see this with digital clothing. So all this fashion sector becomes more and more digital, and so on. So there, I think it's more or less clear that decentralized approaches will play a dominant role there.
Okay, thank you for your opinion, Harry. In a few sentences, what is your opinion, and what do you think, like in your perspective, when you think on the short and maybe on the long term?
Well, on the one hand, I'm very optimistic in this technology cannot be stopped. It's like water dammed up there somewhere on the hill. It is coming down the valley. But when I look at various countries and I compare them, I see very clear differences in the sense of we are afraid and we regulate versus we embrace and we encourage. And it is clear that those countries that will embrace and encourage these technologies will reap the benefit of them, because that is where the people will not feel hindered, will not feel blocked, will not feel overtaxed, will not feel stopped in their tracks. So they will converge on these countries and the ecosystems will develop there. And those countries that try to protect all of the present players and the past players and achieve, and build protective barriers. And unfortunately, as it looks now, Germany, for me, falls very squarely in that category, will miss or risk missing the opportunity to be a major player in this technology, just as, let's be honest, the first digital revolution also passed by Europe and passed by Germany and exclusively rolled out first in the US and then in a completely new phase in China. And in standard Web 2 digital ecosystems, Europe and Germany is very far behind. Digitalwüste Deutschland, I believe everybody knows the term. And this is not to be negative about it. This is just a piece of everything. You only achieve what you do. Es gibt nichts Gutes, außer man tut es. So if you do overregulate, do not expect to be the place where these technologies will be developed. That is, on a general level, I fully agree with Thomas that this is coming. There is no doubt that it will come. There is so much subculture, so much genius, so much creativity converging on the sector, pretty much still at the subculture level. We haven't even seen the beginning yet. I have seen the internet, the commercial internet grow, and we are now where the commercial internet was in the year 1998 in terms of maturity. We still have the first real bubble to explode is still ahead of us. So there will be bubbles that will explode. 2017 was a small one. They will continue to blow up. They will continue to re-emerge. Google and all of the big players happened after the dot-com crash, not before the dot-com crash. So there'll be violent corrections, but this thing will grow exponentially for at least the next 20 years. That is definitely my assumption.
Thank you very much, for your opinion. And with these words, let's end our blockchain meetup session right now and step into the networking part. Before we step into the networking part, I want to thank Thomas and Harry for your participation and for your very interesting and suspense introduction to decentralized platform economies and competition, and all the content you delivered was very, very interesting to listen to, and I hope all the participants were also really happy to follow your words and your presentation. I'm sending you right now the link, because we are now switching for all of the, you don't have to, feel free to join the networking part, where you can just meet maybe some new team members for the hackathon challenges and just create a team and think about new ideas. I provided you the link down there in the Zoom chat. Just click on it. I guess you have to use either the Chrome browser or Edge browser right now. It is free to join. I will also join for until 10, so we can talk, have a private conversation, just talk with maybe other people. And yeah, that's the ending of the blockchain meetup. Thanks again for everyone for your participation, for your coming. Thanks for Dennis for your co-hosting support. And we will see us in 4 weeks again, when we have our next blockchain meetup, which possibly will be in German again. This was the exception for the blockchain hackathon. Thank you, Harry, and thank you, Thomas.
Thank you,
Thanks for having
Mark.
me.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Thomas.
everyone.
Thank you, Dennis. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.